Welcome to Corporate Warrior, the podcast that brings you the best advice on how to improve your health, optimize performance, and maximize productivity. With your host, Lawrence Neal.
This episode is brought to you by hituni.com. If you haven't been a long-time listener and had the upsides of high-intensity training drilled into your brain, HIT has dramatically reduced my exercise volume to sub 30 minutes per week while helping me build more muscle and reduce my body fat to 10%, which in turn has enabled me to do more with my time, like play sports that I love, build businesses, and play more Call of Duty. Who wouldn't want that? So what has this got to do with Hit Uni? HitUni.com are providers of amazing online courses that teach you all about high-intensity training. There's a course for newbies that will show you how to optimize your workouts to build more muscle, burn more fat, and improve overall health. And the bulk of the courses are designed to qualify you to become a high-intensity training personal trainer and equip you with all the knowledge and business skills you need to build a successful fitness business. Hit Uni comes highly recommended by Body by Science author Dr. Doug McGuff, Discover Strength CEO Luke Carlson, Drew Bay, and Medix Precision Fitness owner Blair Wilson. It was founded by author and one of the UK's leading personal trainers, Simon Shawcross, who's been training people for 15 years and has supervised over 15,000 workouts. With help from contributors like Jimmy Moore, Dr. James Steele, and Edward Harrison, and inspiration from Arthur Jones, Dr. Ellington Darden, Ken Hutchins, Mike Mensa, Hit Uni is a goldmine for learning everything to do with high-intensity training. The courses are delivered online through the website, where you can learn via a variety of multimedia materials at your own pace. There's an online support and discussion forum where you can share ideas and ask for help. I personally used Hit Uni to build my own stunning physique, just kidding, but I have purchased a course to improve my understanding of HIT and improve my own results. The content is amazing, the courses are really easy to follow, and each section is organised into these bite-sized chunks that give you a real sense of achievement as you tick off each one. To get your exclusive Corporate Warrior 10% discount on any course you purchase, simply head on over to hituni.com, that's hituni.com, and enter the coupon code CW10. So again, head on over to hituni.com, choose your course, and enter the coupon code CW10. Thank you for your support. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Corporate Warrior with your host Lawrence Neal, where it is my purpose to talk to the experts to perform a detailed analysis of their exercise routines, diets, morning rituals, meditations, business tactics, life hacks, and more, to make you more productive and successful in terms of your own health, business, and lifestyle. Corporate Warrior is the #1 podcast for high-intensity training, a form of strength training popularized by Arthur Jones in the 70s and 80s. Guests include high-intensity training pioneers like Dr. Doug McGuff and David Landau and Drew Bay and Dr. James Steele and Dr. James Fisher. Big-time health and fitness online personalities like Ben Greenfield and Mark Sisson. Productivity experts like David Allen and Stuart Ralph. Entrepreneurs like Luke Carlson and Simon Shawcross. And extreme endurance adventure racers like Andy Magnus and many, many more. The next guest is a chap by the name of Alex Fergus. Alex Fergus is a very interesting character. He actually came to me via email. He dropped me an email explaining how he had managed to win the Real Fit competition at Paleo FX using high-intensity training protocols. So this was a very, very interesting story since the Real Fit competition is highly competitive with lots of fit men and women participating, and many of which are CrossFitters or very, very disciplined fitness enthusiasts, versus Alex, who was, is a very fit male in himself, but, had only, in terms of preparation, had only been doing high intensity strength training once a week for for, I believe, 15 minutes a week for 9 months leading up to the competition. That's all he had been doing in terms of strength training. And so to go ahead and win that competition was a pretty awesome testament to that type of exercise. Alex Fergus coaches some of Australia's top executives. His job is helping them look and feel amazing through natural lifestyle choices. Alex is personally driven towards optimizing his own health and performance by combining ancestral protocols and modern day science. He shares his knowledge in his blog at alexfergus.com, that's alexfergus.com, and rowfaster.net. He is also the founder of blueblockers.com.au, selling products that help people improve sleep by living in sync with their natural light cycles. This was a very wide-ranging podcast with lots of very interesting topics. Some of these include how Alex crushed the competition with just HIIT as his preparation, as I recently mentioned, Alex's personal exercise routines and diet, and we pay particular attention to his current exploration into high-fat, low-carb and its upsides and downsides. We talk about his view on exercise and dietary intake in relation to optimizing muscle growth, as always. And we talk about Alex's impressive business record, how he's managed to build multiple online businesses, varying from web design to paintball products. And we talk about much more. We do jump around in this one. We kind of go from fitness to business to fitness again. And so if you're more into the fitness side of things, then perhaps skip ahead. But it is a bit sort of jotted about, so to speak. This episode is packed with great advice and tactics that you can test for yourself. There's plenty of resources mentioned in this one. So for all of those resources and the rest of the show notes and links, they'll be in the usual place on corpwarrior.com, corpwarrior.com. Just search Alex Fergus and it'll pop straight up. And without further ado, please enjoy this inspiring conversation with Alex Fergus. I wanted to just kick off asking you some questions about your story, which is really interesting. I know you in your blog and your About Me, you kind of cover kind of high level your journey in exercise, like your time in rugby union and rowing and bodybuilding and stuff like that. Really interested to actually hear you talk about it in more detail. So would you just do me a favor and kind of run through your career in exercise from a young age to now and how that's evolved?
Sure. Firstly, thanks for having me on the show. I've been a long time listener, so it's great to be on the other side. But yes, in regards to my sporting experiences, so I'm 29 at the moment. I grew up in New Zealand. I'm currently based in Sydney, Australia, but moving back to New Zealand in 4 weeks' time. So I played a lot of rugby union, as you mentioned. I think every Kiwi plays rugby union, at least at some point in their life. And I think it was 15 years rugby. Semi-serious. It was something to do, I guess. Made a few rep teams, but nothing extraordinary. But I was always active. To be honest, I think it was the competition. I just really liked competing. So, like even when I got into computer games at one point, I was pretty serious with that because I just wanted to win. So I was always signing up for cross-country running, athletics, whatever I could get my hands on. And that was all throughout school. And the rugby was going well, but then I stumbled upon rowing, in particular indoor rowing. So on the ergs, on the rowing machine. And there was a competition. So I jumped in that, ended up doing really, really well in that competition, and decided to sort of back off on the rugby, focus on rowing. And that was towards the end of my high school days. And then through university, a lot of rowing. So I was very serious with my rowing then. Went to the States and made some good crews as a lightweight. So I was only 70 odd kilos. And the rowing was great. But it kind of burnt me out a little bit. Like we were doing 12 sessions a week, mornings, nights, and you might have a Friday afternoon off, and then the weekend was regattas and camps. And I mean, it was great fun. And I'm actually look at getting back into some rowing, but it was very intense. Like that was my life, And and so I guess I would have been 21, 22 maybe, and decided I'd had enough of the rowing, and ended up getting into the gym. And that was the first time in my life that I'd really lifted weights. I'd been to gyms to row, like on the machines, but I'd never touched a weight. So, and then that led me down the path of the powerlifting, bodybuilding, cycling, and here I am today with a lot of experiences under my belt.
Did you what did you study at university?
I studied business management, project management, and strategy, which was, I mean, I've owned a few businesses, and it's, at the time I was unsure what I'd do, and I was always going home reading, training magazines and all that, and I sort of questioned if I should be doing that, and I probably should have, but I mean, it all worked out pretty well anyway. So
hold up, so did you? I missed what you just said. Then did you say you ran businesses previously, or?
Like all through high school and university, I had some various websites and
cool
little projects on the side. I guess I've had a bit of an entrepreneur streak, and so it's been a passion, and that's why I ended up doing the business course. But again, like there were days when I'd go home from classes and the first thing I'd do was open up, bodybuilding.com or whatever it was at the time that I was reading. And I sort of questions, do I have my priorities wrong here? But anyway.
Cool. Okay. You also just mentioned there that you had a little streak of gaming. What game did you play, or games were they?
This is I'm showing my age here, but this is before like the internet. I mean, the internet was around, but there was very little online gaming. So it was all just LAN parties and that sort of thing. But it was a lot of what was it? Age of Empires, like a lot of real-time strategy games, and Command and Conquer, like those sort of games, and then a little bit of first-person shooter games as well. To be honest, I'm glad I grew up in a very rural area in New Zealand, so it was only a few years ago we finally got ADSL and broadband, but I'm kind of glad I didn't have that fast internet back then, because we may not be having this conversation. I may be a big, fat, overweight 29-year-old gamer otherwise.
And there's nothing wrong with your age. We're the same age, so that's cool. But no, that's interesting, because I used to play a lot of real-time strategy games. I was a big Red Alert 2 fan. So nice, at one point, I'm sure I was top 30 or something like that, because I used to play this game. I used to play this game all the time. I was totally addicted. It probably destroyed my college grades. I was just, I mean, even to this day, I could play that game, and some of the listeners won't have a clue what I'm talking about now, but I could load up one of the maps, and I know exactly how to build for optimal efficiency in terms of the base, which is incredibly sad to say. But it's funny how stuff like that sticks with you, and it has no importance in your life now, and you wish you could replace that with something that adds value now, It's funny how the brain works like that.
But I mean, it's all experiences, and I guess there's may have been some benefit in terms of cognitive function, or I don't know, fine motor skills with the mouse or something. I'm sure there were some benefits of doing it, right? Of playing games.
It's interesting though how we both have that in common, and I wonder whether that also connects to the fact that we're both kind of critical thinkers around exercise. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, so cool. So, having read some of your articles, it's interesting. You're very similar, or at least you come across very similar to Jay Vincent. Did you have a chance to listen to that interview I did with Jay, or are you familiar with him?
I'm not familiar with his work. I've listened to the majority of your podcasts, but I can't recall.
So he's similar to you. He's got very, very good physique. He's actually a fitness model, kind of part-time, and a personal trainer. And he used to do the more traditional approach to bodybuilding, high volume, high frequency, and then he came across Body by Science and Doug and the kind of HIIT methodology, and then changed it all, and now is working out once or twice a week, similar fashion to you were during your experiment. And lo and behold, his results are incredible. Like, he still he hasn't lost any muscle. In fact, he claims he's gained lean mass since he switched, which is interesting. However, he's also very open about the fact that the number one thing that attributes to his physique is his genetics. What's interesting about you is, certainly you alluded to it earlier in your About Me, you used to be sub 75 kilos. So you haven't always been, and you're like 100 kilos now, I think. I read in one of your articles, or close to.
I'm down to about 92, 93, but we can talk about that later. I've started a new experiment, but I usually I typically sit around 95 up to 100 kilos. Yeah.
So I guess my question is, how much do you think your physique, what you've achieved, is down to genetics versus, or do you feel no, I haven't been given a genetic advantage, I've actually just worked really hard? Because there's a huge debate, obviously, in exercise about the importance of genetics and how actually you can do pretty much whatever, and the body is so plastic, it will just adapt. It's not necessarily the protocol that's that important. It's more about the genetics. So what's your thoughts about all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, look, I haven't delved into all the papers in detail, so I'm just going to come at this based on my thoughts and
absolutely,
and opinion.
That's fine.
I am right into health and wellness. I'm becoming more of a health coach than an actual training, PT coach these days. And I'm getting right into the epigenetics. So, how it's all about the genes that have been expressed that really make the difference, So you can find out you have a particular gene for, like diabetes or cardiovascular disease, but it's all about the environment and the lifestyle that you live and the choices you make as to whether that gene will be expressed. So I remember reading once, and it was like, you can have the dynamite in your hand, but it's whether you like that dynamite or not. So I know that's more from a health point of view, but I have thought about it, like, how does that work from a physical attributes, like training point of view? Because does that mean, I'm, 178, 5'10"? I'm like, does that in theory mean you can somehow change your environment when you're going through puberty, and then maybe you're going to be, 6'4", is that how powerful it is? I'm not too sure. So to get back to your question though, I know my family are all quite stocky builds, so the 5'8", 5'9", they're all farming sort of background. They all got the farmers build, so thick forearms, solid calves, solid legs. And when I was rowing, 18, 19, 20, like you said, I was 72 kilos, and I remember going back to going home one Christmas, and some of my uncles were kind of ridiculing me, saying, "Look at you, you don't belong here." So as soon as I stopped the rowing, and as soon as I stopped the dieting that I was doing with the rowing, I immediately shot up to about 80 kilos. And then, of course, I got into training, and over the years, I've gone up and up. So I do know that my genetic makeup in terms of my family, they have thick thighs, they have, thick arms and stuff. So, and then I'll train a client who I see his parents and his, family and his sisters and siblings and everything like that, and they're all, super thin, and he's struggling to put on weight. So I do think, yes, there is some factor that comes into play in terms of training around that. It's a really good question. I mean, look here, I've responded really well to my powerlifting training, where it would have been very rare for me to go more than 5 reps, other than a warm-up. And I did that for years, and I got good results. I then went into the bodybuilding training, where I was doing everything from, giant sets, supersets, high volume, and I got good results there. And then now, I've tried this Body by Science super slow sort of routine for 9 months, where I was literally training 12, 15 minutes a week, and I also got good results. So am I an outlier, like this genetic freak? Sometimes I think yes, I do have maybe some abilities that average Joe may not have. I understand that, and I understand that when I work with clients, based on all the results I have seen over the years, like some people need a particular protocol. So I don't know. It's really tough. I think that everyone may be suited to their own particular style of training. And I know, there's organizations like DNA Fit. I'm not too sure if you've heard of them, but you can do your...
Not really. No, I don't.
Okay, so you can do your genetic testing, like a 23andMe test, and you send them their results, and then they'll come out saying you respond really well to volume or like endurance training, or or your recovery. You need to pay more attention to your recovery. So there's some stuff that you can sort of look into to see that may be able to help you fine tune and see exactly what you need to do or what you should avoid. But I really think that for most people looking for good to great results, as long as you're working hard and recovering adequately, and taking the muscle to failure here and there, and mixing it up every now and then, you're going to get pretty good results. It's when you then want to look at the next 10%, that's when you might need to really sort of fine tune. So I know that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but it really does depend, I think.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about Paleo FX quickly. That article, as we were talking earlier, really got my attention. What happened when you went to Paleo FX? So can you do me a favor and just explain what the Real Fit competition is and what it measures?
Okay, cool. So it's a bunch of exercises that were created to test all-round athletic ability. So you've got things like 40-yard dash testing, acceleration or speed. You've got agility tests, obviously testing agility and the ability to move, which is applicable for like football players and all that sort of thing. You've got pure strength tests using the ARX machine, so it was chest press and a leg press. You've got more of an endurance test, which was using the rowing machine doing sprints, intervals. So it was all round. That's how they sort of marketed it, as an all round test. And then based on the results they get, and they've got all this data, they can then spit out a report and say, look, you're really, really good in your strength, but your speed is very poor. And then obviously if you're a powerlifter, you're like, well, that's great. If maybe you're playing, I don't know, rugby union, for instance, and you're a front rower, that might be great. But if you're in the back somewhere, you may need to tweak things. So it was 9 exercises. Yeah, like I said, it was things like deadlifts for reps, chin-ups for reps, medicine ball throws. It was a bit of everything. And I don't know, it looked pretty cool when I was there. So I was like, oh, let's jump in and give it a go.
Awesome. It's also probably important just to say what Paleo FX is, which in my understanding is that I've never been, but I've always wanted to go. It's kind of an event that is all about kind of ancestral diet and movement and exercise, and a lot of guys contribute to that who are quite well known, such as Mark Sisson and Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey and so on. Is that a good explanation, or is there perhaps more to Paleo FX than that?
It was my first time going, so obviously it's a big trip from Australia. So
yeah, I bet.
It was 3 days. They do the whole. There's the market sort of stalls and all the companies pushing their products, which is actually really cool. Like I enjoyed that. And then there's a lot of presentations and speeches and networking events. And there was an entrepreneur day on before it started. So it was just a really good networking event, and seeing what's happening in the world of health and fitness. Like it's not just like paleo. There's a lot of just general health fitness kind of companies there as well. So it was good. It's if you can ever make it, it's worth going.
I will. I keep trying to tell Keith to host it in London. So hopefully one day he will. But to be honest, I do want to get over to the US, and there's a number of conferences I'd love to attend. Okay, so let's go back to the Real Fit competition, which is very interesting. So you'd been leading up to this event, for approximately 9 months, you had switched from doing high volume, high frequency exercise, correct me if I'm wrong here, to the Body by Science approach, which was once a week, 15-minute workouts, high intensity, which is basically resistance training to one set to failure. And you went into this competition thinking, I'm probably not going to do great because, I've not been perhaps training specifically for it. But you ended up absolutely smashing it. So tell me, how did it, walk us through that? Like, how did that go? And what sort of reactions did you get?
All right. Well, to be honest, when you said I was going into the competition thinking I wouldn't do very good, I actually wasn't even going to compete because, I mentioned how I'm very competitive and stuff, and I had seen this competition in previous Paleo FXs just on their blog and stuff, and I was always like, oh, that's cool. Like, I think I'd be pretty good at something like that. And it was a very last minute decision to go to Paleo FX in 2016. I had to go to Hong Kong for business, for a company I set up there. And I was like, you know what, like, that's 4 days before Paleo FX. Why don't I just extend the trip and fly over? So it was all very, very last minute. And yeah, you're right. I had been doing this Body by Science super slow training for about 6 months at that time. And that initially started as a, let's try this training protocol. I've heard a bit about it, but also because I had a lot going on in my life on the business side, and I didn't want to train, 4, 5, 6 hours a week. So I've just been doing that. Wasn't really putting too much attention into my training. I was just going in, making sure that 15-minute session was brutal. As you know, they are very brutal. I was thinking I've got one shot to do this, and then I get 6-7 days off, and that's how I was training. So given that, and this was June 2016, I hadn't done a deadlift all year. I hadn't squatted since I think November the year prior. I hadn't done any barbell training. So I was flying to Paleo FX and I was thinking, that competition's on. Oh, that's a shame. Like, there's no point in me competing because I'm going to get spat out and laughed at and I want to win when I do things. So here I am on day one and I'm actually in pants. I was in some sort of business pants and and I really wanted to see the ARX machine. So the night before I was talking to the founders of the ARX, and I reckon it's a fascinating piece of machinery there. So I was really looking forward to trying it. So I'm over by the ARX stand at Paleo FX, and the guy said, all right, jump on, we'll do something. And I said, cool, what should I do? And they said, well, we might as well do the real fit test because then you can see how strong you are compared to everyone else. So I said, yeah, well, that makes sense if I'm going to be on it. So of course I do that, and turns out my numbers were really cool, really good, and I was like, oh, that's quite impressive, like, sweet. And then a friend of mine who was there was like, oh, well, I'm just going over to this stand now, and that's where they were doing the vertical leap. And I was like, well, this is fine, it's a vertical jump, like I'm just jumping, it doesn't require me to warm up or anything. So I did that, and then they were like, that number's really good. I don't know what it was, 30 inches or something, and then at that stage I was like, hold on, I've done all this in pants, unprepared. I've just flown from Hong Kong like 24 hours prior, and I think I was sitting at that time, the first day, I was sitting at number one in the 3 events I'd started. So I was like, and then all of a sudden that little competitive fire was ignited, and I figured I've got 2 days to do the rest of the events and decided to give it a crack. I mean, I still went out. There was one night we went out to a networking dinner and I didn't get home until like 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff. Like, I didn't turn into ultra competition mode. But yeah, I was a bit mindful about the rest of the events.
What was the margin between like you and second place? Do you remember? Was it did you win by quite a way or?
No, I think it was. It was pretty close. Like, because the way it works is it's not a set structure. It's not like everyone does this test on day one and everyone does this on day 2. You could literally go in and do all 9 events or tests in one day and then leave, or you could save them all to the end. So some people, I think on the final day, like my last event was the rowing repeats, and obviously I was a rower, so I was kind of looking forward to that, especially because I was hungover and very, very sore at that stage. And I think I was sitting third at that time, and then I did the row, and I was straight up to number one because I got a really good rowing time. And there were a few others that still had to do their events, and so I was just sort of watching in the background to see how people were going. But yeah, and then I finished on top. I can't remember the exact margin. I think you can actually find the data. I should have a look. But yeah, all I know is I was at number one, so that's all I was too worried about.
So you mentioned in the blog post how all these guys kept coming up to you and girls saying, oh, what CrossFit team are you part of? Like, what do you do? Like, constantly. So talk us through, like, what they were asking you, how you reacted to that, and kind of reaction you got from them. Be interested.
Yeah, I mean, like Paleo FX, obviously Paleo and CrossFit, strong relationship there, and I guess this workout or competition did have a bit of a CrossFit style programming behind it. And I've never done CrossFit in my life. Like, I've never even been in a CrossFit box to train or anything like that. So I saw all these CrossFitters just based on the t-shirts they were wearing, and a few of them maybe I just assumed they were CrossFitters just based on all the bands and the shoes and all that stuff they're wearing. But I think, these guys are pretty serious. Like, this is what they do. And so people would come up to me after my test, even some of the judges, and be like, oh, so what do you do? Like, CrossFit, like, do you do athletics or something? And I didn't really know what to say. Like, what do you say? Because, I mean, I know you and your listeners obviously are well aware of the benefits of, HIT and all that associated training and everything. But, probably 2 years ago, I would have had no idea about it myself. And then even up to, I guess, this point, I still didn't really understand the benefits myself, like in terms of performance. So, yeah, I didn't even know what to say. I just said, I'm not really training much. Like, I'm doing a very minimalistic sort of minimalist training. Like I was doing. Some people, I said super slow, and they kind of just glazed over. Other people were like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. And I don't know. I think a lot of people just thought I was bullshitting. Like, here was this Australian Kiwi who had flown over and was winning this competition and wearing pants and going out partying and stuff like that. Like, what's going on? So. But then I think about it, and I'm like, well, if I was in their position, I would have had my doubts as well. I would have been like, who is this guy? How's he doing this? Okay, he must be very focused and particular with his training. I mean, that's how it looks, right? And a few people I did sort of explain a bit more, and they were curious. And I know one judge, after I did the deadlifts, as many body weight deadlifts in 2 minutes. So I think it was 95 kilos I had to put on the bar, and I think it was 60 something reps. I got
very impressive. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was, I think someone else got that same number as well, so it was like equal. But the judge, he was like, wow, like, what do you do, powerlifting? I said, no, I haven't deadlifted since 2015, like 6-7 months ago. And he just couldn't understand it. He was like, how'd your lower back not blow out? How did XYZ, how'd your grip strength hold up? And I was like, man, I don't know. But you saw me do it. And and I said, once this article's up, the Paleo FX articles, I thought I'd write something at that stage. I was like, I'll send you a copy and you can find out all about it. So it was an interesting experience.
Have you had much feedback on that article from some of the people on the day who were like, they perhaps didn't believe you or didn't understand how you could have achieved that?
Yeah, a few people, like, sort of through Facebook and stuff, are like, wow, this is really interesting. I'm going to find out a bit more about it. I mean, the Paleo FX article, I'm sure you'll link to it, but the article, I sort of touched on my overtraining background and, like, my health issues and how, I was using this less is more sort of approach, not just from the training, but also from, diet and supplements and everything. And I think the article it wasn't primarily focused just on the body by science sort of training. It was a bit of everything. So I've since obviously written articles on my site that go into that detail a lot more, and I've got more feedback from those articles where people are like, wow, this looks cool. I'm going to look at kicking this off, start of the year and all that sort of thing. So yeah, to be honest, like, again, like if I went back a couple of years ago when I was stuck in my ways with bodybuilding or powerlifting, whatever it was, and someone told me about, you know, this super slow training, I would have just, oh yeah, cool, whatever, and then moved on. You know, you don't really put much thought into it. And I respect people when they do that, like when I tell them the story and they react the same way, because I can understand. I guess I'm a lot more open-minded now and keen to try new things and realize sometimes less really is more, particularly with training.
Did you said you mentioned you beat Ben Greenfield in the article? Did you get to speak to him or meet him, or did you get to kind of like,
I did.
Was he upset? Because I know I've had Ben on the show and I know how competitive he is. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I do a superhuman coach program, so you know we're on calls and all that every few weeks or months. And yeah, I've learned so much from him. Like, he is, in fact, it may have been one of his shows that first introduced me to Doug, which then which is how I got here. So yeah, he's a very talented, very knowledgeable individual. So I saw him there. We bumped into each other a few times and had a bit of a chat. So that was great. And I didn't see him competing in any of the events, and I didn't even realize. And then it wasn't until that networking dinner, the charity dinner, the Saturday night, so the night before the last day, and we crossed paths going to the bathroom, and he said, I'm going to kick your ass tomorrow. And I said, oh, wait and see. And yeah, I think his rowing time was quite bad, and I think his rowing, like, I remember seeing a video. I messaged him afterwards and I said, mate, I got to teach you some technique. Like, you lost so much time in his face on the technique. And then he just turned around at me. He was like, whatever, man, you must be on some crazy supplements or something. I was like, dude, I'm just following your lead. So no, he was it was great to meet him, and I'm sure if there was a 10K run in there, or you know, anything over the, like, a couple Ks or a couple hours, I think he would kick my ass. So, well, I know he'd kick my ass. So yeah.
That's very gracious of you. No, it's cool. Okay, so. Right, so just wanted to, I guess, shift gears slightly. I just wanted to quickly talk about your career a little bit, if that's okay.
Sure.
So we were talking before we got started recording. We were talking a little bit about how your blog's really taken off, and I'd just be interested. What have you found to be the most effective? And I know, like you say, you're not a huge fan of marketing and social media and stuff like that, and I actually really respect that, because I don't like the way a lot of online entrepreneurs sort of market their products and services. But what have you found to be the most effective method to get your blog to where it is today? What have been the things that have made the difference for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, look, I get a decent amount of traffic to my site, but there's one or two articles that stand out in terms of the hits. Like, they're probably making up 70 or 80% of the total hits, and that's just, they've been shared multiple times and they went semi-viral, I guess, and then you get good search engine ratings and all that sort of thing. So I don't necessarily write with the intention of being number one in Google or getting like 1 million hits or anything like that. I just kind of write, like, if there's a big part of what I write is based on what I'm learning at that time. So I'm working on, I'm doing a lot of stuff with ketogenic diets at the moment, right? So as I'm reading the books and listening to the podcasts and reading the articles and experimenting with things and finding out what keto meter is the best in that, I just dump all this down into a document, and then I'll turn that into an article, like as a bit of a knowledge base, I guess. So that's often how a lot of my articles have created, and I find that a lot of people like that kind of I don't know, down to earth, just spoken as it is. It's not all glossed over with, you know, sales pitches and all that. So that's a big part of my blog, and I do a lot of coaching now. Well, my main source of income is through health coaching, and it's online, obviously, big online component. And I often turn common questions into blog articles now. So, you know, if someone's saying, hey, like when we introduce fasting, for instance, rather than me sending a few articles and links and explaining the benefits and explaining how to do it, I'll just build a blog article, send it out to the world. If anyone wants to read it, great. If not, then whenever my clients get up to that part of the course, and then I just refer them to the blog. So for me, it's just like, whatever, I'm just building up a knowledge base and dumping a ton of ideas on there. I did, start doing social media and Facebook, Instagram for a while, and I did see a lot of traffic coming through there, and just the relationships. Like if you're in a good group and you're sharing ideas, and then you create an article that's linked to what people are talking about, that gets a lot of traffic. All those individuals share it with their fans and stuff. So I see the benefits with that big time. I just personally just like hanging out on Facebook and pushing, the sales side of things. And I made a decision pretty much after Paleo FX, where I was like, rather than spending an hour a day on social media, I'm going to spend an hour that hour chasing up with my clients and calling them and improving my product and service, so that my clients are more likely to get results, and then in turn refer clients and become walking billboards. And so far it's working really well, and all my clients have come through referrals. So if you actually go on my website, there's only a section about consults. There's no coaching information or anything like that, because I don't really push it. So I don't know, like, because I sometimes wonder, am I leaving a lot of an audience on the table by not using these other platforms? But it's a decision I made that seems to be working well.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I think it's not all about growth, like at the end of the day, if you don't want to spend that time doing that stuff because it doesn't fulfill you or whatever, then surely that's a good enough reason not to do it. I think too often people are sort of chasing, business success at the expense of everything else. I'd be interested, actually, just quickly, in terms of your other businesses. You mentioned you had businesses in the past, and it sounds like you still have some other companies. You mentioned websites in addition to your blog. Is that something that you can talk about, or is that pretty confidential?
No, I can talk about it. I mean, through high school, I had what did I do? I had me and a few mates set up a company where we built websites, really budget, cheap, generic. I guess those are really all negative sort of words, budget, cheap, generic. But at the time it was, everyone wanted to get online, but it was like $5,000-$10,000. So we were just building template-based websites. There was a tracking company that just wanted to put some photos and their name on a website, so we did that. Like, that was a company I had, or a business I had at high school. I imported paintball gear. I was right into paintball, and I decided there's a market here, so I set up a website and used to ship that out and all that. So
did you create these websites yourself, or did you outsource that?
No, I did it myself. I spent a lot of time on computers, so you just seem to figure things out. And then, what else? It was so these days, obviously, I had my personal training business here in Sydney. That's kind of morphed into more of an online business now. And then I am actually working on an app to help with my coaching program, which I've decided that I'm going to license it and build it for online coaches all around the world. So that's cool. Coming out. That's called Hey Coach. It's in the App Store like 2 days ago, but we're not going to really release it as such until next year. So that's pretty exciting and expensive. I've got a sleep company, an e-commerce company called Blue Blockers. So it's blueblockers.co or blueblockers.com.au here in Australia. And that you may have heard of Blue Light and So I set that up February this year. That's doing really well. So selling here in Australia and New Zealand, and we're about to launch America probably next year. We're just waiting on a bit more cash, and that's going really well. And then I'm really fascinated with this training concept, like the super slow, high intensity, the ARX machine as well. Have you been on an ARX machine?
I'm familiar with it and how it works, but no, I've not used it. I'd love to, because it just sounds like an even more extreme, efficient version of high intensity training.
Yeah, I got off it and I said to the guy, I said, how much? I want one. And he just laughed. He said, well, we don't sell, it's lease only. And I said, all right, well, I want to lease it. He said, like, it's expensive. And I was like, oh.
Well, how much are they to lease?
It was a big amount. Like, you do it as a business, right? You wouldn't do it as a personal. I've got my own garage gym going on here. But yeah, I'm really I was very impressed. I mean, with the machine, obviously with this training modality, I work with corporates, like executives. That's my main client base now. And a big reason why I started this training was to see if it did work and to test the programming and everything. And then obviously use it with my clients. And so, yeah, I got a lot of clients who want to look and feel great. They know they should go to the gym and stuff, but they're working massive hours looking after, billion-dollar companies, and they can't go to the gym 5 times a week. Or, they shouldn't, because they've got so much stress in their life. So I put them on these sort of programs, and they get great results. I mean, look, they're not going to into bodybuilding champs, but they don't want it. They want to have the body to match the car, to match the job, sort of thing. So, getting way off topic now. No,
that's cool.
That's that's this area of training plus that machine have really, I don't know. It's sort of interested me, and I think there is a massive market there if you can tap into that. And so, yeah, like all my clients now, if they're time poor and they don't want to do the conventional training, then I'll put them on high intensity training, and then the tricky thing is I then have to educate them and show them how it works, and then obviously train this way using your standard gym equipment like hammer machines and Cybex and stuff, because I don't know of anyone down here that's got Nautilus and Medics or an ARX machine. So that becomes a bit of a problem, because obviously like my time's limited, and I've got clients all around the world, and so I can't see them all and show them in person. So then I'm going to find PTs that are clued up, and I was like, you know what, like it would be really cool just to have a few of these little centers, and I just say, here, look, go to this gym XYZ once a week and spend 20 minutes there. And I know Doug does this exactly, like this is how he trains his clients. And so, yeah, that's another area that's interested. Well, it's got me interested in terms of business. So there's lots going on.
I wonder whether, because I did my girlfriend bought me a set of blue blockers from a site, and I don't know if it was. It sounds like it was your site, but I don't think it was, because it wasn't .au, but it just sounds very similar. So that's quite interesting. But no, I think it's great what you're doing. It's very motivating to hear you do all these other little projects. Not little, but you know what I mean. So what is it for you that you strike me as somebody who's very motivated, very productive? So what is it that really motivates you to do so much, do you think? Like, do you have your off days? Because I ain't seeing them.
It's so funny because you touched on growth before, saying how like people obsessed with growth and like Facebook likes and email and stuff. And I've always had the attitude that I'm like, I don't really care. Like, I think a big reason behind this thought is working with some very successful individuals. They've built massive empires and they've got all the toys and all the material items, but they can't sleep. They've got a massive beer belly. They look horrible, or their relationships are very poor. With their family and stuff. And I just realized, like, long ago, I was like, I don't want to trade off. I don't want to sacrifice my family, relationships, health, so I can have another zero on my bank account. So I've always had that thought process, and that's why I don't push Facebook, and that's why I don't advertise my coaching services or anything like that. And I'm happy. I'm like, I get to travel, I get to do these things I like, and it all's good. But I still keep doing things. Like, literally yesterday I was talking with another client about another business idea, which I didn't even talk about a few minutes ago, and And I'm like, yeah, that excites me. Like that's an opportunity. My sister actually today was messaging me, and she's got a little idea going on. And I said, yeah, I'll help out, mentor her. And so there's always something. And I don't necessarily know what the driving factor is. I just read a book last week on a New Zealand rowing pair. It was called The Kiwi Pair. Hamish Bond and Eric Murray, and they won 63 races in a row, gold medal Olympics and world champs and stuff, and very fascinating book. And in it they were talking about how, like, there's those days or there's those races where you're in so much pain that you just want to give up, beyond the usual pain. You're wondering, why am I doing this? And they sort of mentioned how you have to have that why, you have to have that motivating factor. Like, is it, okay, I need to win this race so I can earn the $10,000 prize money to pay the bills or pay, put food on the table for my family? You need to figure that out. And I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, what's driving me? Like, I don't know. I really don't know. And like I said earlier, I'm getting back into some rowing myself, and I plan on competing maybe next year. And yeah, I was just trying to think, why am I'm 29, like I've got businesses and, long-term relationship now. I'm like, why am I going back down that path and pushing myself? So I don't know, I guess it's a little bit of a type A personality. I really don't know the answer to that question. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's one of those things that I suppose a lot of the answers to these questions, they evolve over time, and as you get older, you look back and you realize that your opinion on what I just asked you will always change. And no, that's fine. I don't expect you to, I'm putting you on the spot here. You've not seen any of these questions, so don't worry.
I should mention though, sorry, I didn't answer the second part of your question. I do have off days, like everyone has off days. And there are days where I think this is ridiculous, like I don't care, like whatever. And I'm just going to, sell the business or cut some clients, not take on more clients or anything like that, and or stop training. But then I find like it's almost like a forced rest day. Like, when someone's training all the time and they don't believe in rest or deloads, and then they get injured and they have a week off and then they're back and running, So I feel like those days are just days where I like are forced into switching off, and I'll just be like, whatever, I'm not checking my emails today, and I'm just going to hang out with my girlfriend. And then 2 days later, I'm back into work mode. So, yeah.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit more about exercise. So let's talk about when it is you did your high intensity training exercise routine. Could you talk about what was your routine exactly, and how did it evolve over time, and how long you were on it? I know we've touched on that, but could you just go through that?
Yeah, sure. I think it was about October, November 2015. So that was coming into summertime down here. And I think that's when I started. And it was straight out of the Body by Science book. It was the Big Fire, using I think Cybex and hammer machines that we have at the gym I was working out of here in Sydney. And I just did that once a week. Some days may have been 8 or 9 days apart. There may have been times when it was less than a week, but it's generally once a week. And yeah, just again, I'm sure your listeners are pretty clued up on how the training works and stuff. So just going in and making sure I was hurting at the end of each session and trying to improve my times. And then if like over Christmas, New Year's, I went back to New Zealand and I think I had two weeks where I didn't do anything, and I was like, whatever, like, they say this is okay, so I wasn't beating myself up about it. And then some days, like when the weather was really nice and I didn't really want to go into the gym, I'll just go down to the park, and there's a bit of an outdoor gym there, and I'll do like an outdoors workout, some inverted rows hanging from a bar and some slow push-ups and like some wall sits for squats and stuff. So I just mixed it up, and I didn't really have a set routine. I just knew that every time I did a session, I had to push myself. That was the downside. I guess like it reads so well when you find out about this program, like the time savings, how beneficial it is, to the health and everything like that. But the catch is like, to get the results, you have to push yourself, and that requires a bit of pain. So that's all I did. I just kept that in mind, and I didn't really have much of a plan or program. I think after 3 months or so, I changed it to the A-B split, where I was only doing 3 exercises,
Yeah.
And I originally thought at the time, I was like, okay, this is just getting too easy now, like just having 3 workouts. And my PT mates at the gym thought I was in and out in 10 minutes, and they were like, where else are you training? You signed up in another gym sort of thing. So I just followed the plan, and I ended up doing that for 9 months, so it was good.
Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's. I will link to the article where you actually talk about the workout and then how that changed to the AB, the freeway split routine that you mentioned there, which is exactly what I did actually. And I was doing that for a while, and I really enjoyed doing that. But it always felt a bit weird. I mean, some of my workouts were like 6 minutes long. 6 minutes a week, and I was absolutely like, I could barely walk, after 6 minutes. I was, that's how intense it is. But yeah, sadly, Keys are training in London, which is I think a global name. They went out. Well, they closed shop, unfortunately, and they stocked a whole load of MedX machines. They were really, really well kitted out. I'd been going there for about 3 years. I'd built some good relationships there, and it's a very sad day actually. It was it was announced sort of when I was on my way back from holiday, and so now I've actually reverted back to working out at home. I've got a pull-up bar and various bits and bobs, so I'm sort of using it as an opportunity to learn more about how I can get the best results from home with much less equipment. So it's almost like, okay, this is a bit of a compromise, but I can use it to, write some blog articles about it, to explore, how people can get the most out of that type of situation. And also I can ask, it helps with when I come to interview people like you, I can ask you some specific questions about that, which I will in a second, to find out what your thoughts are on that sort of stuff. Just also, you mentioned in your blog article about you were doing a sprint session every 2 weeks or so, as an adjunct to the high intensity training routine. I just wanted to clear something up. In the routine, I wasn't sure. Are you doing 1 minute rest between each sprint? Is that right? Or
again, like it was very. What should I do today? It's a nice day. I'm down at the park. Let's do a couple of sprints from this tree to this tree, and whatever. Like there was no plan. So when I was writing that article, I was like, well, I know I need to put some specifics, and I guess if you averaged it all out, it would have been 4 or 5 repeats. Anything from 5 seconds to 20-second bursts with about a minute rest. But again, like. I was very carefree with it all, and some days I had my phone there and I'd do a sprint and then check my phone and answer an email and then do another one. And again, like I was doing that. I thought I'd do it every week, like when I started this protocol, and I just got so busy with other things. I wasn't doing it once a week, so it was just whenever I had the time and whenever I felt like doing it. Like some days I just wanted to do something else, and I knew it had only been 2 or 3 days from the super slow workout, so I was like, I'll just go do some sprints. So it was very relaxed programming wise.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because it's not. I love that it wasn't prescriptive. You kind of went on how you felt, and I think it's important to note that just because someone says, okay, your sprint interval, you must have 30 seconds between each sprint, and you must do this many sprints that last this long. It's just a kind of a protocol to follow. But really, like you say, you could have 2 minutes or 3 minutes off doing a sprint because you're checking an email or whatever. You're still going to get the same outcomes, regardless.
Totally.
Yeah.
And this is, I guess, one. I try not to read so many blog articles and stuff these days because there's so much noise out there, and so many studies come out. Excuse me. And it goes back to what I was saying with the genetics and stuff, right? Like, for most people who want to look good, feel good, even perform good, it doesn't matter that much. As long as you're pushing yourself, recovering good, sleeping well, eating well, you're going to get those things. It's when you want to really try win the Tour de France, or win national champs in bodybuilding or rowing or whatever it may be, that the programming and those finer details become so much more important. Like it frustrates me so much at the gym when I see people come in and they're they probably couldn't even do 2 or 3 chin-ups, or they couldn't deadlift their body weight, but they've got this 4-page document that's got all their exercises and percentages, and they've got calculators, and it's okay, just do 6 months or 12 months and get strong, and just do a 5x5 or starting strength or something like that, and do some sprints here and there if you feel like your fitness is dropping, and then once you've built that base, and then once you've got a serious goal, then maybe look at all that other stuff. But I don't know, that's just what I've seen over the years, and I realized like I said in the article, less is more, and also stop overcomplicating it, because often you kind of miss the forest for the trees, so to speak.
Sure. You mentioned something quite interesting there, which is that you're careful not to read too many blog articles, and I feel the same way. I feel like you have to be careful, because you start taking on these beliefs that are just another person's opinion. So how do you get most of your information? Do you go straight to the source and try and read scientific journals and that type of thing? I'm always a little bit, whilst I acknowledge that's probably one of the best ways to get information, new information. It takes a lot of discipline to read those things sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, look, even if you jump on PubMed, there's so many flaws with that as well, because a study showing that running at this intensity for this time improve VO2 max by this percent, and you're like, oh, well, that's what I need to do to get fitter. But then you find out it was on 18-year-old girls who had never trained in their life, right? But you know what I mean? So there's so many limitations with it all, especially on the health and diet side of things, the meat studies, and then you find out the quality of the meat they were eating was horrible, and it's so even going straight to the source can have its limitations as well. In terms of what I do, that's a good question. There's a few people I follow, and I respect their work and their opinion. So Ben Greenfield, obviously, and there's a few others in the health world. And I kind of just rely on them. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I just like getting the ideas. And sometimes, there'll be a topic or a point that really interests me, and I'll dig into it a little bit deeper. But it's also a lot of hands-on trying things. So this is why, this body bias science experiment of mine was cool. I read the book. I read actually 2 or 3 books. I listened to hours upon hours of podcasts on the topic. I watched so many YouTube videos. I actually pulled up some of the reference papers that were mentioned in Doug's book. I looked at it all, right? And you could use all that information. And this was over a couple of weeks. It wasn't just one day, okay, that looks interesting. It was a couple of weeks I was diving into it. And then you could use all that information and I could spit out an article saying, high intensity training is the best way to train, blah, 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 and you back it up with studies, back it up, put in some YouTube videos in there, reference the book, and do all that, right? And like you said, it's just my opinion, even though there are studies and stuff there. So I personally think that, for things like this, I'd rather just try it, whether it's with myself or with my clients who are a bit more open-minded, or I'll look at some other reports from individuals. And yeah, I mean, it's tricky, because there is so much noise out there, and there's a study showing that XYZ does this, but then XYZ does the complete opposite in another study. So it's hard, and you can get very caught up in it all.
No, but that's good advice, though. I suppose you do have to be very wary of scientific of the studies, and like you say, there are a number of variables that you have to understand that they're not controlling as well in some of these studies. So yeah, I guess you just have to become better at discerning fact from fiction, and like you say, you have to be your own experiment.
Totally.
And kind of embrace that N=1 sort of approach to it.
Yeah.
So going back to training for a second. In one of the articles, you posted James Steele's high intensity training bodyweight workout, which is insane. If you want to see an incredible example of bodyweight training done, very impressively, but also, you can tell he's gone right to the edge of what failure really is, especially on that wall sit, which wall sits are just another level, because wall sits are one of those ones where I don't know how you find. I mean, you've got obviously got incredibly strong lower body, but you want it's one of those ones where you want to give up way before you've actually reached failure, right? Like they're just horrific, and he does a great job showing people how to actually execute that. So. But you mentioned in the article that you felt that bodyweight training had some shortcomings versus maybe using other equipment. So can you elaborate on that? Why do you think bodyweight training is perhaps subpar in many ways or some ways?
Well, I think like the easiest way to support my thought is do a routine using machines. If it's mid-X or ARX, great, but otherwise just spend the time to set up a hammer strength or Cybex strength machine, and then a week later do the same routine using body weight, and then just see. They're both very tough, like you said, like they're both very, very painful, but just see how the muscle feels at the end of each session. So and look, I've been using this for 9 months, and I've put a lot of clients through this program now, but I'm by no means an expert with this sort of training, but the understanding I have and what Doug was trying to achieve when I was reading this book and listening to a lot of his podcasts is it's very similar to the bodybuilding training, right? You go into a particular lift or an exercise with one objective, and you've got to understand that, let's say you're doing a chest fly, right? And you're seated chest fly and you're a bodybuilder. You go into that thinking, all right, I want to work my pecs, or I want to work my upper pecs, or whatever it may be. I want to take it to absolute failure so I can get all the benefits, growth and all that stuff from that. And so you go into that lift and you're doing it, but then your pec starts burning and screaming, hey, this is really, really hurting. You have options. You can keep working that and push through the pain, or you can kind of cheat and, hunch up and bring in the traps and bring in the biceps and do a bit of a bicep curl and a forearm curl at the end and kind of, cheat the rep, right? And sure, you might get your 12 reps out or whatever it may be, but at those last 3-4 reps, you weren't hitting the pec. I mean, you're hitting it, but you're not getting the most force out of the pecs. So that was something I learned in bodybuilding. It's like, well, okay, even though on paper it says 4 sets of 12 on the pec machine, it doesn't really matter what weight you're doing as long as you're taking that particular muscle to absolute failure. And you have to keep that in mind when you are up against the wall, like, and it's hurting. So applying that logic to the bodyweight science, I thought it was very similar. Like, you go into, say, a seated chest press, and the goal isn't to move 100 kilos for as long as possible. The goal is actually to fatigue the pecs, for as long. Well, I mean, the goal is to fatigue the pecs. I guess that's the main goal. So I found in a machine it was a lot easier to achieve that goal, to get that outcome, because you could isolate, you could really hit that muscle. And that's where the great thing is with mid-X and ARX and all those sort of machines, is it helps you focus on that muscle and not bring in your lats and bring in your traps and your triceps and all that sort of stuff. You can just hit that one area and take it to absolute exhaustion. Now, doing a body weight exercise, let's keep using the chest example here. Let's say you're doing a push-up, right, which is generally what I would do if I was doing a body weight routine. It's very hard to load the pec the same way you would with a machine. Obviously, the angles are changing. I mean, the push-ups may be a bad example because it is pretty pec dominant. But, when you've got things like chin-ups or chin-up. Like at the top, you might be getting a lot of bicep involvement, and at the bottom, you may be a bit more lats, but your rhomboids and all that sort of stuff as well. So the beautiful thing with the well-designed machine is you can hit that target area while avoiding as much as possible, those other secondary muscles, which then in turn gets you, the inroading and all those beautiful things you're trying to get out of a high intensity session. So that's why I think I personally prefer the machines. But I'm not against the bodyweight stuff, and in fact some of my clients don't like going to the gym. Some of my corporate clients, they don't like going to the gym, so I get them to do a bodyweight routine at home, and I just tell them, look, you'll still get results. It's going to be hard, but it may not be as great as if you were coming to the gym to do it.
Yeah, cool. Good answer. Yeah, I feel I know exactly what you mean. So certainly somebody who's gone from using a MedX chest press to doing push-ups at home, it's a very different experience, because like you say, it's whilst and I'll bring Doug up here, who said that how all the muscles in the body are so tightly integrated that obviously there's no such thing as isolating in an absolute way. But like you say, you are applying much more precision to the muscle group perhaps when you're using a machine like that, versus doing a push-up where, I remember when I first started doing this bodyweight workouts, I've only done my third one, I think, and I couldn't do super slow push-ups longer than a minute. I was done, and that's because I'm using so much in the way of quadricep, my abdominals, my triceps, everything, and it's these aren't muscles I'm necessarily targeting with it, but they come into play whether I like it or not. So no, I agree with what you're saying. That does make it more challenging to do. You mentioned in one of your articles about correct me if hopefully I'm pronounced this right. Is it an Oura ring or Oura?
Yeah. Oura ring, Oura. Yep.
Oura. Okay, cool. I've not. Well, I had seen Ben talk about this ages ago, but I've not really looked into it. Really interesting though, because I like how you use it to measure recovery. So talk to me. How does it work, and what are you using it for?
In terms of how it works, I've actually I built a review. I typed up a review on the ring, and it's on my website, so you can link to that. It's quite detailed, but then the guys from Oura actually approached me because I put a lot of questions in there, and there were a few things that I wasn't happy about, and they approached me, and I ended up having this long conversation with them, and then I did a follow-up update to that blog. So that blog covered, if anyone's interested in finding out more about it, just check out that article, because it shows everything, all the screenshots and stuff. But what it does is, it's like a Fitbit, a Fitbit on steroids that fits on your finger instead of on your wrist. So it's tracking your heart rate variability, it's tracking your heart rate, it's tracking body temperature, it's tracking metabolic activity, it's tracking movement and all that sort of stuff. It tracks your sleep states, which is very, very accurate. That's, I guess, one of the key selling points, how accurate the sleep measurement is. It's doing all that, and then it's spitting out a lot of data, and then the data is obviously that they're using that data and feeding it through algorithms to generate readiness scores, how well your sleep was and all that. So I am a bit of a geek, as we've probably alluded to numerous times now, and I love getting all this data. I love looking for an edge, and also I was quite sick a couple of years ago. Well, not sick as such, not vomiting sort of thing, but I had a long period where I couldn't stand for more than 2-3 hours without food or coffee or sugar or just having a nap. I was no libido, no energy, that sort of thing. So I pushed myself very hard, and I paid the price for it. And now I am very careful with how I train and how I recover. And I like using devices like this just to keep a gauge on how things are going. What's the saying? You can't manage what you don't measure, sort of thing. So I find the Oura rings. So I find the Oura ring, just giving me that readiness score every day, showing me my body temperature overnight, showing me my lowest resting heart rate, showing me when that lowest heart rate was occurring. If it's occurring late at night, it shows, you're under a bit of stress and stuff. Showing obviously activity. I just find that it just helps me keep a little bit, or stay on track and make sure I'm not pushing too hard. And and I like it. I don't know. I like technology, and I like the data. And I also track my HRV with Elite HRV every morning. I've looked into other things as well, but I was like, these two things are probably enough. I do a lot of lab testing, like cortisol testing and hormonal testing every 4 to 6 months to really see what is going on there as well. So I'm always testing and checking and looking for an edge and trying to dig myself out of the hole. But the Oura Ring it's pretty cool. It is a pretty cool gadget. Leave it at that. That's for sure.
HRV, heart rate variability, for those that don't know, which is another useful way to measure recovery. I link to a lot of the stuff you mentioned on your blog. So the Ring sounds amazing. I want one. I did have a look last night at them. They're quite expensive though, aren't they? They're like $330 or something. But I suppose it's an expensive bit of technology to produce, I imagine. So it comes with
it's very well designed. Like I mentioned in my review, I say, like, if Apple were to create a ring that, fitness ring, it would be something like this. Like it's pretty slick and it's rugged as well. So like, I have been back into deadlifting and stuff lately, and I leave it on and it 200 kilos in my hand.
Have you got it on now? Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, it's quite big though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know if I could get away with wearing that to the office. I think I'd look a little silly.
I went through that phase, and because I don't wear jewelry or anything, and I think a few people thought like my health and wellness journey had jumped into that spiritual kind of woo-woo land, and they thought it was some like gem rock, some crystal on my finger. And I was like, oh no, it's a gadget, like. And then they're like, oh, okay, that makes a bit more sense. But I got some weird looks, and I remember when I used to meet potential clients, like these millionaire clients and stuff, and I'd suit up and I'd take it off for the meeting and all that, because it was quite bulky. But now it's been on my finger for months and I don't even think about it, and it's a conversation piece. If someone looks at it, I'll just tell them there's a story. Oh, that's cool. I'm assuming like the next generation one will be a little bit smaller and probably a little more slick, but yeah, whatever. Once it's been on for a few weeks, you don't even notice it.
It looks like Power Rangers when they do like morphin time.
Yeah, well, like what was it? The Earth Ring.
God,
Captain Planet.
Captain Planet. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Cool. So. Right. So supplementary exercise. Just want to ask you a bit about this. I think you mentioned you were at the beach earlier today. You mentioned, I think, in some of your articles that you like to do some movement and play, which I think is really important. I mean, it's no good doing something like high intensity training once a week and then sitting at a desk, 10 hours a day. So, or on the sofa or whatever. So tell me, what do you do? What do you do in regard to like movement and play in your life, and how do you incorporate that and schedule that?
Yeah, I'll just go back to what you said in regards to like sitting at a desk all day and using HIT, because my coaching program, like I said, I work with predominantly corporates, right? And I find there's two types of individuals. There's one group that want to train every day and run Ironmans and marathons, and then I've got to slow them down because they're burnt out and stuff, right? And then the other group wants to do absolutely nothing. Like they're quite lazy or not lazy as such, but they don't like the idea of going to the gym multiple times a week. So that's where HIT is great, and I send them my articles and I sit down with them, explain how it works, and I say, look, you only need to do the 15 minutes a week. Maybe we chuck in some sprints every fortnight. And they're like, great, this is awesome. But then obviously I explain how there's the catch, and yes, the pain sort of intensity is one aspect, but I also say, look, you can't just do that once a week and then just sit all day, every day of the week. You've got to move. And what I actually do with my clients is when they start with me, they actually do 6 weeks, no training at all. No interval training, no intensity training. Instead, I just get them walking, like I think I set it at 8,000 steps a day, and I get them to wear a Fitbit, and I'm just tracking their data coming through every week, and I send out reports, and I score them, and they're in groups, so I sort of send out a table and all that sort of stuff. But the point is, I'm trying to establish like that movement. For some people, they were only doing 1,000 or 2,000 steps a day. They get up, they get in a taxi, they go to the office, they get in a taxi home, and that's it for the day, right? So I'm trying to get them moving, and then we bring in a bit of like mobility, yoga, Pilates work, and then after they've sort of got that habit down pat, then we bring in the more intense training. And I think it's important doing it that way, because I think if I started saying, all right, cool, you need to do this 15-minute session once a week, and then a few weeks later, all right, now we're going to focus on steps, they might be like, oh, whatever, I'm doing my 15 minutes, that's all I need to do. So yeah, it is very important just to keep moving, and not to think, all right, well, I've done a training session. But that's true for any type of training. Like, you could go to the gym and do a spin class and then sit at a desk all day, and it's been shown that after a couple of hours, like all sorts of metabolic functions are downregulated after a couple of hours of sitting. So I just wanted to sort of touch on that, because I think it is important. In terms of my movement and play, like, I guess I'm quite active. Obviously, as a PT, you're on your feet, moving around a lot. I don't do much PTing now. It's probably 1 or 2 sessions a day max. But I'm fortunate enough that I'm not stuck behind a desk, and I used to work in banking, so I know what that life can be like when you are just stuck behind a desk. Yeah, so I can relate to my clients, but for me, I just walk everywhere. Like, I just walk to the shops. I don't have a car. My girlfriend's got a car, but I just don't have one. And if I got to get somewhere, I use public transport and walk to the station, or walk into the city if I'm meeting a client. It's a 20-minute walk into the city, but I'll just do some calls on the way in, or listen to a podcast on the way in. So I just make sure I'm moving as much as possible. And then in regards to play, yeah, I mean, it's kind of dropped off a little bit over the last year or two, which is actually a little bit sad, and it was actually why I'm looking forward to moving back to New Zealand, because I grew up on a farm, so, there was always the hunting, fishing, just playing outside. I was right into paintball and used to play paintball once a week, in the bush, and I miss all those sort of things. I playing touch football with my mates and stuff, so that's dropped off over the last year or two since I've been living in the heart of the city. But I hope that will come back into my life once I get back to New Zealand. Yeah, but otherwise,
is that the main motivation to go back? Is to get out of the city and get back to kind of nature? Is that fair enough, or is it other drivers for doing that?
There's multiple reasons. That's a big one. Obviously, my family's all from New Zealand. I got a big family, and I kind of miss them. I've been in Sydney for 6 years, so missing them. I'm at an age now, I'm 29, where starting my own family is coming up, and I'd like to bring a family up on some lands, in touch with nature around my family. Prices, it's so expensive here in Sydney. Like, I would never be able to get out of a little apartment unless I go out into the middle of nowhere, and I don't really want to do that. So at least I can be in New Zealand and be in the middle of nowhere in New Zealand. But yeah, I'm on a massive health kind of journey, I guess, where I'm the more I learn and the more I read about like non-native EMF, environmental toxins, just the stress, just the intensity of living in a city versus being on a farm, all these things. I'm seeing firsthand the effects with my clients, but I'm also starting to experience them myself. And I'm like, I don't want this. Like, I want to be at home and have a little garden and yeah, just work when I want to work and yeah. So that's my goal. So that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but yeah.
We're on the same page. I mean, I live in Hammersmith in London, and it's zone 2. It's quite central, and I have exactly the same point of view as you do on that. So my medium long term goal is to get the hell out of here. But that's a longer conversation and a work in progress.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Right. You also mentioned, I think, in one of your recent articles that you're doing a new experiment. I imagine it's probably to do with rowing, but is that confidential, or can you reveal any of that?
I really revealed it to anyone. Like, I mean, I think a few of my clients, yeah, here we go. A few of my clients may have picked up on it, and obviously my girlfriend sort of sees me doing different things here and there. But I finished that. I planned on doing 6 months with that body by science training. They ended up going for 9 months just because I was like, well, it's great. I'm staying in shape. And I've got all this time and I had a lot going on business-wise. And then, so I pushed out to 9 months. And then, yeah, for some reason, I just had this burning desire to get back into a sport, into competing. Because I haven't really competed for about 2 years, other than the Paleo FX event. And it was a bit of a, what do I do? I'm going to be living in New Zealand again, like, weighing everything up. And I really enjoyed rowing. I thought it was a great sport. It's very peaceful, tranquil, when you're on the water. You race over summer, the regattas are awesome, like, the sun's out, everyone's in good vibes. It's a great sport. And I was like, you know what, I've learnt so much in the 10 years since I last rowed. It would be interesting to see what I could achieve now, even though I'm 10 years older, knowing what I know. For instance, when I went to the World's Indoor Rowing in Boston when I was 19 or something, right? And I think I ate Pop-Tarts the morning of the race. Like, I was in America, right, and there was like Pop-Tarts, and I think I'd had them once in my life. I was like, cool. So I had Pop-Tarts the morning of the race, which is probably fine, but no idea. And then I think I had 2 or 3 hours sleep the night before the race, and it was just like, I had absolutely no idea. Like, never drank caffeine or never used caffeine as a performance enhancer or anything like that. So part of me is like, wow, I wonder what I could do now, knowing what I know and having all the experience, but also using some of this technology, and also, I guess, using some new training techniques. And so I read a book from Phil Maffetone. Have you heard of that?
I recognize the name, yeah.
Yeah, so he coaches a lot of endurance athletes, like marathon runners, obviously 10K, right up to like ultra marathon, Ironman. And he's all about like building an aerobic base, improving your fat burning capacity. And yeah, I read a book, what was it called? I've got it right here actually. Endurance Training and Racing, the big book of endurance training and racing by Dr. Philip Maffetone. Cool. So I read that, and then I read Mark Sisson's latest book, Primal Endurance, which uses Phil's concepts, and it just interested me. I mean, I haven't really done endurance sports for a long time, so I haven't really gone down this path looking at training techniques and all that sort of stuff. But I do have a lot of clients who, like I said, the corporate clients, I don't know, everyone seems to be running Ironmans and triathlons these days and getting into cycling. So they're coming to me with questions, and I've always been a bit like, okay, we'll do this, work in some intervals, do a bit of strength training. And I was like, you know what, this could be a good opportunity to learn a bit more about it so I can help my clients, but also apply these training concepts. And it's very heart rate restricted training, so you're staying in your aerobic fat burning zone, 140 beats a minute, and you're doing that for a couple hours a week and weeks on end, and then every, say, 8 weeks you might do a 1 or 2 weeks where you do your intense sort of work. And there's been some fascinating studies that are just coming out. A study called the FASTER study, stands for fat. Oh God, I'm not even going to try remember what it was, but it was.
Send it to me afterwards. We can link to it.
Yeah, I'll send it through. And that looked at, it took high level elite endurance athletes, one of which was Ben Greenfield actually, and they had some. They had a group that were fat adapted, so eating a low carb diet, ketogenic type diet, and then they had another group that were on a conventional, higher carb, especially for endurance sports, like high carb diet, and they paired them all up. So these guys were elite level, like world rankings and all that sort of stuff, like many years of experience. And they did all these studies. Like they did muscle biopsies, they were doing the bloods, they were doing various treadmill tests. I think they did a 3-hour treadmill test as the main test. And then they were looking at their RQ, which is your respiratory quotient, I believe, which shows you how much fat and how much glucose you're burning, all right, based on your breath. And they found that like the guys that were fat adapted at a set intensity, let's just use for argument's sake, they were going, I don't know, let's just say 200 watts, right? They're putting out 200 watts. The fat adapted guys were burning a huge amount of fat, right? And a small amount of carbohydrates. And again, I'm not doing the study justice here because there's so much details and you can pull it all up and have a look yourself. But then the carb adapted or the general dieted athletes were burning a much bigger portion of carbohydrates, right? Which makes sense. But then they were showing that as your intensity picks up, those fat adapted individuals had more room to move, so to speak. They had, they hadn't really tapped into that turbo source yet, which is what carbohydrates are, right? Like the fat, that's why you saw so much fat in a small amount of carbohydrates. Whereas the carbohydrate burners were already running on redline, so to speak. And then obviously there are a ton of side effects to utilizing so much glucose. Like there's a lot of oxidative stress. Obviously, you need to consume a lot of carbohydrates to replenish that fuel, which you run into insulin issues and diabetes and all that stuff. So it's a very, very fascinating study, and there's still lots of little articles coming out as a result of that. But in a nutshell, what they were saying is those that were eating a fat adapted, high-fat diet, in turn, the muscles were much more efficient at burning fat. So then if you train primarily to improve the ability to burn fat, which you're doing at the really slow, low-intense training, then effectively what you're doing is you're building a very, very big engine that you don't need days upon days to recover from. You don't need huge amounts of sugar. You can just eat lots of avocados, nuts, red meat, so that sort of thing as a fuel source without all insulin spikes. And then you get the benefits of ketogenic diets and all that sort of jazz as well. So it's very interesting. It's very new science. A lot of people thought it was a load of rubbish and that these guys were just freaks and everyone had to have carbs and stuff. So I decided, I was like, you know what, this is all interesting. I want to try this for myself. I want to see what I can achieve. So my plan is, over the last 3 months, I think, since I've started this, I've been on a pure ketogenic diet. Like I haven't had any carbs for about 3 months now. I'm eating 3.5 calories a day, 85% from fat, restricting my protein.
Did you say 3,500 calories a day?
Yeah.
Okay. And you say no carbs for 3 months. Does that mean no junk food, no beer, nothing?
No, nothing. So not even sweet potato or rice. Like
really?
Like nothing. It's I'll be putting the article up soon explaining what I'm doing, but it's like I'll intermittent fast for 14 to 16 hours. I'll do a 1.5 hour row in the morning on an empty stomach. I won't eat for about 2 hours after rowing. Come home about 2 o'clock. I'll have my first meal, which is typically sardines. I'll have a can of sardines, avocado, heaps of mayonnaise, which is egg yolks, and MCT oil, and then some sauerkraut or some greens. And then dinner, it'll be like casseroles with tons of fat. Like I'm talking, it's like fat soup sort of thing. Right? My girlfriend hates it. So that's all I'm doing. And then even the protein though, because if you have too much protein, you kick off gluconeogenesis, which can spike insulin, which shuts down ketone production, and it means you've got to fast for a couple of days to get back into ketosis. So that's what I've been doing for 3 months, and all the training to date has been sub 142, 144 beats per minute rowing sessions. And I'm doing anything from an hour to 2 hour rows, usually on an empty stomach, just keeping in that heart rate zone. And so what that's doing is I'm purely in a fat burning zone there, right? Like it's conversation paced. There's no anaerobic activity at all, right? And so when I first started that, I was sitting at like 140 watts for 30, 40 minutes, which is pathetic, right? But anyway, it gave me a benchmark, and then now I'm sitting like 170 watts, which is still like pretty poor, but I had no endurance base. I haven't done any endurance sports for a couple of years. So what that's showing to me is I am getting fitter, obviously, but I'm getting better at running off fat. Like my aerobic base is getting better, right? So I want to bring that up to 200 watts for half an hour in that restricted heart rate zone, and once I hit that, then I'm going to bring in bursts of like the anaerobic training and all that, and hopefully next year or even 18 months I'll be quite competitive.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and takes an enormous amount of self-discipline to do what you're doing. How are you dealing with like cravings? Because you must be getting well, I'm assuming at the start you were getting cravings, or have you never struggled keeping to a strict diet?
I've been pretty good. I mean, look, I have always been on a low carb diet. So even when I did that Paleo FX, I was low carb. When I did my bodybuilding, I was on a low carb cyclical diet. Like I was eating bacon and eggs and butter every day right up to my comp, and I was 5% body fat. So I mean, in terms of missing out on carbs, like whatever, like that was 7 years ago for me. I was well over that point. But I used to bring in cyclical carbs, so like I'd follow a carb backloading type approach. I don't know if you've heard of John Keefer and his carb. Yeah. So that's how I used when I was bodybuilding, and then that's what I was using until 3 months ago. And so what I'd do is once a week, depending on my training intensity, depending on my body fat levels, it may be a carb refeed once a week, or it may be 3 to 4 times a week. So obviously with the Body by Science training, it was just a once a week refeed. Otherwise I was all fat and protein. But the big change now into a ketogenic diet means not only am I restricting carbs altogether, so I don't get those weekly refeeds, but I'm also limiting my protein intake down to about 100 grams a day, which isn't much, which is actually very tough because, instead of having that whole steak, you can only have half the steak, but you got to add fat. So I haven't had cravings. I do I do enjoy chocolate and I can really blow out on dark chocolate. So there's things like, all right, well, I have to be smart and I'll only get 95 or 99% chocolate now. And if I want chocolate, that's what I have. And I just completely wean myself off all sweet things. So I don't use stevia, I don't use xylitol. And I find like the other night I had some broccoli. It was like really fresh broccoli and it was quite sweet to me. I was like, this is so good, and my girlfriend's just looking at me like rolling her eyes. So I mean, you adapt, right? And I'm pretty disciplined and I like doing these experiments and testing myself. So once I've sort of got that mentality, you can put a piece of cake in front of me and I'll be like, yeah, whatever, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, and I can relate to that. Are you using coconut butter as well? I love coconut butter. Is that allowed? I mean, that's mostly fat, but obviously there is carbohydrate in there too. So
yeah, no, I use that. That's more of a treat sort of thing, or like I'll make a low carb dessert using coconut butter and that. But yeah, coconut butter, lots of coconut oil, obviously coconut cream, lots of lard, tallow, avocados, macadamia nuts. I personally like the diet. A lot of people think this is a horrible diet, but lots of fat, lots of salt. I'm happy.
No, I totally understand that. Fat tastes great, right? Like the meals you're explaining to me, I'm like, yeah. I mean, I eat quite similar sometimes, and I really enjoy eating that way. You're getting quite a large number of calories in what is quite, I suppose, a fairly short eating window. So, these meals must be huge. So they must be like 1750 calories per meal.
It's a really good question, because I have had some gut issues. Like I said, I do a lot of testing and had some health issues, and I found I had some pretty serious gut dysbiosis, and digestion, everything was really, really poor. So the doctor I work with, naturopath I work with, was a bit like, look, the ketogenic diet may not be the best in terms of, for various reasons and stuff, but also like the fasting, compressing those meal times may not be great as well. So I take digestive enzymes with meals. I take a product called Biodigest from Thorne Research. So I take 2 of them with meals. So they got oxbile acid, which will help with like the fatty acid digestion, and pepsin and a few other enzymes in there. So I take them with meals. And yeah, I mean, the meals are big calorie wise, but they're not big like, I mean, I'm 29, I'm 95 kilos. Like, I do eat big portions, but they're nothing like a typical sort of bodybuilder that's just scoffing down carbohydrates and protein, right? Like, it's not volume-wise, it's not that much food because obviously the fat, 9 calories per gram, and fat is often liquid form. You're having that casserole, and you can have a casserole with a lot of fat in it, and then a casserole with no fat in it, and they may look very similar in terms of, appearance-wise. So it's a lot of calories come in, but it's not necessarily a lot of food. But you are right. There are days, because I occasionally do 24-hour fasts as well, so I'll just have 1 meal a day, and I'm hitting 3,000 calories over 2 hours. But again, like, I find I've adapted to this way of eating over the years, and it's not too bad. The only thing I have noticed, though, is because your Oura Ring will show your sleep and stuff, if I eat too close to bed, it really has a big impact on my sleep quality. And I've known that from insulin. Like, I know insulin disrupts growth hormone, and obviously puts a lot of metabolic demand on the body to digest a lot of food. So I've always known that, and I've always tried to keep my carbs, a few hours away from bed. But I didn't really think much about it with this diet. And I've noticed, like, if I'm having 2,000 calories at 6, 7 o'clock, and then I go to bed at like 9 o'clock, chances are my sleep will be a little bit off. So I've got to be a little bit smarter, and maybe maybe it's not wise eating so much food in such a short window, but I enjoy the fasting, and it's something I'm still tweaking and experimenting with, but yeah, I'll get there eventually.
Talking about calories in relation to muscle mass, there's a number of conflicting ideas out there on how many calories are actually required to induce, muscular growth. You've got, like, at one end of the spectrum, you've got Tim Ferriss and the 4-Hour Body and the concept of overfeeding. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got Doug, who, has said on my podcast before, you know what, if you're eating 100, 200 calories above maintenance, you're eating enough to stimulate as much muscle growth as possible. So, which is they're worlds apart, really, when it comes to calorie consumption. So, what is your view? As for example, do you feel that eating a larger number of calories or a large number of calories has played a big part in your you gaining weight, or do you think? What's your overall recommendation when it comes to this kind of stuff for gaining muscle mass?
It's an interesting topic, and I don't know if there is any right or wrong way. I probably lean a bit more towards Doug's thoughts or view. But it's very tricky because, like, even with this ketogenic diet, like, as I said earlier, protein. So a lot of people know, okay, you go ketogenic, you cut out all carbs, but a lot of people don't cut protein. And it wasn't until I got a keto meter and I started testing myself and I realized, like, even though I wasn't in carbs, I was never in ketosis because I was having far too much protein. And so then that got me looking into some of the studies and seeing actually how much protein is required. And obviously a lot of protein studies are done on, like, avoiding muscle atrophy and looking at the other spectrum, which is like putting on size, and the figures range, like, it's such a big variance. So I still don't really know what the lower limit is in terms of protein mass. I've been personally sitting around 1 gram to 1.1 grams per kilogram. So if I'm, say, 90 kilos, that's about 90 grams to 100 grams a day. And I've been doing that for a couple of months now, and I've found, like, I lost a little bit of weight, but I was always going to starting rowing instead of lots of weight sessions. But lately I've sort of held a pretty stable body weight. So That's going the other way. But then to put on mass, this is just based on my experiences with my clients and myself. When I was at university and I stopped rowing and then got into weight training, I used to be very lean, obviously, as a rower, 70 kilos. And I was quite proud of how lean I was, right? Like, I was like, yeah, I was this ripped, like, teenager or 20-year-old or whatever I was. I got into weight training and I wanted to get stronger and I wanted to get bigger, but I didn't want to lose definition. And I think it was like, 9 months where I was getting stronger, but I didn't put on any weight in the gym, like on the scale. And because I was always suppressing my diet. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I'm just going to switch off for 3 months and I'm just going to eat to excess, like just crazy amounts of foods. I didn't track it, but it would have easily been 5,000 calories a day. And I did that for 3 months and I put on, 5-6 calories and, all my lifts went up big time. And so that worked. That was just eating to excess every single day. And it was horrible. I used to tell people I hate eating. This is the worst diet in the world. So I put on weight that way. But then when I was just general gym training and stuff, like I never tracked calories or anything like that, but I just always made sure I was getting lots of fats, eating plenty of protein. I would have been eating a ton of protein, and I put on weight and I'd just use the carbs as a variable. If I wanted to lean down a bit, I'd cut the carbs back. If I wanted to bulk up a bit, I'd bring the carbs up. Now I've got clients who want to put on weight and they've tried these approaches of upping protein to massive levels, upping fats, upping all calories, eating junk food, and there's really no one size fits all kind of approach. Some people have found that as soon as they up their fats, they put on weight. Other people have found they're like eating, literally drinking fat, and they're still, 6-7% at 70 kilos, and they're like, this is stupid. And I don't know, like it's really tricky. But I do know now that if I were to do it all again, and when I work with clients that want to put on weight, I don't go the, okay, let's just eat to excess approach, because of the potential health side effects on your gut, like the excess protein, obviously excess carbohydrates. There's a lot of stresses involved with eating that way, and I personally don't think it's a good thing to be doing long term, especially if you've got other health issues. So yeah, that's why nowadays I'd use more of a Doug's approach, which is just, okay, let's just bump up the protein a little bit, make sure the fats are good, and then carbs based on intake. Try that for a few weeks. If it's not working, then we'll bump them up a little bit more and take a little bit slower rather than just binge eating.
Cool. Question from a previous guest and a listener, Tom Church. He wanted to ask you if you could, might be difficult for you to answer, but have a go. If you could convince everyone to stop eating or start eating one thing each day, what would it be and with what meal?
Oh, wow. To stop eating or start eating? Is that what the question was?
That's correct,
okay.
Yeah. So you could give 2 examples if you want to.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. To start eating, okay, I'd definitely say oysters or sardines. Maybe oysters. Yeah, let's go oysters. If you could eat them every day, I know that's hard to do, so sardines may be a more practical and financially suitable option. But huge reasons. Obviously, omega-3, which is like I do a lot of labs on my coaching clients, and the omega-3 to 6 ratio is always really bad. So sure, you can use fish oil, but nothing beats the actual product, how it's packaged up in nature. And there's actually some evidence showing that fish oil is not it's inferior compared to actual like oily fish and stuff. So yeah, you got the omega-3, you got DHA, which is obviously omega-3 as well. It's huge amounts of DHA in it, and that's used for nerve sheath, so myelin, which protects the nerve, which helps, messaging and multiple sclerosis, for instance. People with multiple sclerosis, the nerve sheath is like destroyed, and the signals don't transfer through. So I actually work with a client who's got MS, and we've turned her around big time just by upping her DHA content. There's zinc, which if you're a male, very important for testosterone production. And I did a recent test a couple months ago, and my zinc levels were actually a little bit lower, even though I have been eating sardines and oysters. So I was like, Jesus, if I'm low, then what do other people like? You've got things like iodine, selenium, all really important nutrients that are actually quite hard to get from other sources of food. And obviously get a little bit of protein in there. But also like the protein availability, like the digestibility of sardines and oysters are obviously really high, compared to say beans and legumes and stuff like that, soy products, and even some red meat and stuff. Like usually the seafood is absorbed a lot easier. And there was one other thing I was going to say. Oh, and the thing I like about sardines is you're eating the whole food, like the whole animal, right? So I'm a big believer in eating organ meats, bone broth, bone marrow, brain, heart, all that sort of thing. So there's a really good book called Nose to Tail, which is a lot of recipes on various, organ meat meals and all that. Oh, I don't know. It's a big book, but if you search Nose to Tail, it will come up. It's a cookbook. So yeah, I'm a big believer in. Well, I know that people should be eating more like organ meats and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of people kind of screw their nose up and think, oh, it's horrible. But excess muscle meat, which is your typical meat, has methionine, I think it is. I think that's what it was. It's been a while since I've looked into this, and getting that ratio off if that gets too high, with glycine and bone broth, it's been shown to like accelerate aging and all this sort of thing. So it is important to balance out your muscle meat intake with your organ meat intake and bone broth and all that sort of stuff. And now a lot of people don't like doing that, so I'll say, and by doing that I mean like eating organ meats and stuff. So instead I'll say, look, have sardines a couple times a week, or anchovies or something like that, because you're eating the whole fish. You're eating the little fins, you're eating the little organs inside and all that sort of thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, depending on how they've been prepared, but you can get the whole animal or the whole fish. So that's what I definitely bring in. Sorry, were you going to say something there?
No, I was just going to say I've struggled eating, like sardines and things like that, straight out of the can. It's just, I don't know. It's just, it's fine if it's on some toast or something like that, but straight out of the can is challenging. So I'm going to give it another go though. I'm going to start looking at maybe some alternative brands and give that a go.
I'll send you an article, because I was exactly the same. Like I like fish, like white fish and salmon and trout and stuff, and that was all great. But I could never have the small fish and like that really fishy smell and the oil, and I put it off for a long time. Like I was eating liver and kidney and all that, and I just couldn't do the sardines. And then after a while, I just read so much stuff and like the benefits of them, and it's like a true superfood, right? Even oysters, I couldn't eat oysters, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I was like, I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to send you an article right now. And what I thought I'd do was eat sardines every day for a month. I was like, that will conquer my fear, right? Like I'm just going to do it. And yeah, so for every lunch meal, I had sardines for 30 days, and now like I actually enjoy them. And the article I created was called 51 sardine recipes for the fussiest of fish eaters, and all it is a bunch of recipes. Some of them I use, some of them like I haven't got around to using, but they're pretty good recipes. And there was some in there where I just like drowned it with like apple cider vinegar, olive oil, ton of salt, pepper, like sauerkraut, all these things. Put some walnuts in there, chopped it all up, and like it was this huge salad bowl with like 2 sardines in it, and that's how I started. And then now I can, I don't know, a little bit of salt, a little bit of olive oil, and they're fine. So definitely check that out.
Well, yeah, no, I will. What brand do you normally buy for sardines?
So here in Australia, I get a brand called Brunswick. I don't know if they're worldwide. The reason I get them is the BPA-free cans. So I try to avoid BPA, the plastic lining inside cans, which has been linked to like estrogen production and stuff like that. So I try to avoid that. And the wild caught, not farm sardines, and I think that's important as well. Just like you try to avoid farm factory chickens, and you can get them in spring water or olive oil. I don't know how good the olive oil they use. I'm assuming it's like a pretty cheap olive oil, so then at least if I go spring water, I can add my own quality olive oil. And the greatest thing about them, they're only like $2 a can here in Australia, so they're pretty cheap considering the BPA-free wild caught and stuff. Otherwise, there's another really, really good brand by Vital Choice. So I know they're big in America. I know they've got a distributor here in Australia. I'm not too sure about in the UK. But if you just Google Vital Choice Seafood, I met the owner or the founder at Paleo FX last year or this year, Randy, and he showed me their mackerel, their sardines and stuff. And their sardines were amazing. Like, there were some days at Paleo FX where I just went up to his stall and asked for like one of their sardine chili cans, and I just ate that straight out of the can, no salt, nothing. Like, it was so good. But they're a little bit more pricey. Like, again, that BPA free wild, like, they're probably the best product, but if you're eating them every day, like, I think it's like $5 a can or something like that, it starts adding up a little bit. So yeah, Brunswick or Vital Choice.
Cool. I wanted to ask you a few sort of rapid fire questions, although the answers don't have to be rapid fire.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll need to tie this up in probably about 5 or 10 minutes.
Yep.
Morning routine. So what does the first 90 minutes of your day look like?
Okay, cool. I'll try to keep it quick. It's been a little bit scattered lately because of the move happening, and I'm cramming a lot of work and stuff and PT clients and that. But the ideal routine, which is what I strive for every day, is get up, a big glass of water with some Celtic sea salt in it, usually 2 glasses of water. I'll put my Polar H7 Bluetooth strap on. I'll do my Elite HRV reading. While that's happening, I'll do 5 to 10 minutes of deep belly breathing. And I actually use an app called Inner Balance, I think it is, from HeartMath, which is all about like increasing your coherence. So I do that for 10 minutes while I'm taking my HRV. As soon as that's finished, I sit outside in our balcony, and it gets the morning sun. Morning sun helps reset circadian rhythm, helps trigger serotonin release and, cortisol and all that stuff. And that's quite important for sleep later that night. So when I'm sitting outside, I then do a journal entry. I write down what I'm grateful for, affirmations, and then a bit of a day plan. And then that's like the bare essentials. So I do that every day, and I could go on to the other steps, but yeah, I know we're pressed for time, so I'll leave it there.
That's all right. So that's the first 90 minutes. That's very cool. That's very that sounds quite like quite disciplined. Do you sometimes have days where you don't do that? Do you miss it, or are you 100% every day?
So that particular routine I do there is probably 20 minutes or 20 to 30 minutes, and I'll do that every day. Even if I've got an early morning client, I'll do that. If the sun's not out, I still get some sun, or I'd get outside. Ideally, I'd touch the ground barefoot and try ground and earth and all that sort of stuff. But, if I'm really pressed on time and I'm in an apartment, I can't do that first thing in the morning. Well, I can, but it's just the time for me to go down, cross 2-3 streets, find a local park. It's like, so I don't do that. But yeah, that's the bare essentials I'll do every single day. And then there's a lot of other things I'll work in as well. Like usually I'll go for a walk, have a cold shower. But that all depends on morning. But once I get to New Zealand, I'll have probably an hour-long routine that I'll stick to every day.
Awesome. What have you changed your mind about in the health and fitness in the last year?
That's a good question. I guess the importance of volume. I used to think you need a lot of volume and you needed big sessions, training to achieve strength and fitness and all that. And after the last 19 months now, and my results of Paleo FX, and seeing firsthand how this super slow training is so effective, I realize now that, maybe I shouldn't be I'm not telling clients to get to the gym every day. Instead, sleep in a little bit longer and go for a walk and prepare a good meal and then just train once a week sort of thing. If you're just looking for general health and wellness,
Cool. Best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice. Oh God. I like the whole, if you're going to do something, do it properly. And I guess that always rings true with what I try and do. Business, training. And I'm not great at that because there will be times where I'm a bit lazy. I might be making my bed and I'm just like, whatever. But I think that's a pretty powerful piece of advice.
Okay, cool. And what is the best way for people to contact you, find out more about what you're up to, etc.?
So I have my website at alexfergus.com. So I've got a blog there, and a lot of the articles we've talked about are posted on there.
Sure.
You can sign up to my email, and I send out a weekly newsletter, and that's just some interesting articles I found and a Q&A and whatever else I'm doing. It's quite informal. So that's the best way. And then you can get my email through there. You can just come back to me and I'll happily respond. I am on Facebook, but again, I only log in once every couple of weeks, so it's probably not the best place. But alexfergus.com. Otherwise, if you're in Sydney, yell out, or New Zealand, yell out. We can meet in person.
Cool. So it's Alex, Alex, and then Fergus, Fergus.com, isn't it? That's how you spell it.
Like the soccer manager without on at the end. So just Alex Fergus, and no sir either, unfortunately.
Because I was googling you earlier actually, and obviously Alex Ferguson comes up everywhere, doesn't he? He's a bit of a legend over here. So
I've actually got another site. I haven't. Again, this is a bit exclusive as well. I haven't released it to anyone. It's live, but I don't know anyone knows about it, and that's rowfaster.net, and that's going to be a bit more. That's my rowing experiment, and that's going to be a little bit more candid. Just the blogs on alexfergus.com are quite polished, and if I'm I'm doing this article on ketogenic diets, and I'm using a lot of studies and stuff like that to back up my arguments. But the Row Faster blog is just purely going to be today I ate this and did this training, felt horrible, but the supplement picked me up, sort of thing. Really relaxed, sort of candid. Yeah.
Sounds
cool.
Good. I'll list that as well. For everyone listening, head on over to corpwarrior.com and you'll be able to get all of the show notes, resources, links, everything that Alex and I have mentioned in this podcast. And I'd also like to ask all of you lovely people to subscribe on iTunes. That way it helps with the iTunes ranking of this podcast, but also it means that you will get the podcast automatically once it's uploaded to iTunes. So it will just feed into your iTunes app or whatever app you use, Overcast, automatically, so you won't have to actually go and download it yourself. So that's it, Alex. Mate, thank you so much for taking the time today. And sorry I was an hour early.
Sorry I got you up an hour early.
No, it's not your fault. It's me. So, wicked. Now, this has been really fun, and I've learned a lot, and I will definitely be trying out some of the stuff you said. And I'll certainly keep in touch. There's a ton of questions I haven't even asked you because we've run out of time, unfortunately. But perhaps we can do a part 2, some type of part 2 in the future or something like that.
Yeah, it'd be great. It's always fun sharing experiences and stories, and hopefully a few people can get a few takeaways, and maybe I've inspired a few people to try some new things.
I definitely think you have. Cool. All right. Well, look, enjoy your evening, and all the best with all of your projects, and I'll speak to you in the future.
Cool. Sounds good.
Take care. Cheers, Alex. All the best. Bye.
This episode is brought to you by hituni.com. If you haven't been a long-time listener and had the upsides of high-intensity training drilled into your brain, HIT has dramatically reduced my exercise volume to sub 30 minutes per week, while helping me build more muscle and reduce my body fat to 10%, which in turn has enabled me to do more with my time, like play sports that I love, build businesses, and play more Call of Duty. Who wouldn't want that? So what has this got to do with HIT Uni?
HitUni.com are providers of amazing online courses that teach you all about high-intensity training. There's a course for newbies that will show you how to optimize your workouts to build more muscle, burn more fat, and improve overall health. And the bulk of the courses are designed to qualify you to become a high-intensity training personal trainer and equip you with all the knowledge and business skills you need to build a successful fitness business. Hit Uni comes highly recommended by Body by Science author Dr. Doug McGuff, Discover Strength CEO Luke Carlson, Drew Bay, and Medex Precision Fitness owner Blair Wilson. It was founded by author and one of the UK's leading personal trainers, Simon Shawcross, who's been training people for 15 years and has supervised over 15,000 workouts. With help from contributors like Jimmy Moore, Dr. James Steele, and Edward Harrison, and inspiration from Arthur Jones, Dr. Ellington Darden, Ken Hutchins, Mike Mensa, Hit Uni is a goldmine for learning everything to do with high-intensity training. The courses are delivered online through the website, where you can learn via a variety of multimedia materials at your own pace. There's an online support and discussion forum where you can share ideas and ask for help. I personally used Hit Uni to build my own stunning physique, just kidding, but I have purchased a course to improve my understanding of HIT and improve my own results. The content is amazing, the courses are really easy to follow, and each section is organised into these bite-sized chunks that give you a real sense of achievement as you tick off each one. To get your exclusive Corporate Warrior 10% discount on any course you purchase, simply head on over to hituni.com, that's hituni.com, and enter the coupon code CW10. So again, head on over to hituni.com, choose your course, and enter the coupon code CW10. Thank you for your support.